First off, my name is Bailey Parker. I am the Communications Director for the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. And we're going to be talking about the Do Not Call Registry, what it can and cannot do for you. There's some very specific things about the Do Not Call Registry that people just don't either know or understand. They sign up for it and they think it's going to stop all of the bad phone calls that come to either their cell phone or their landline. It's just not the case because that's not what the Do Not Call Registry is. So we're going to be going over that today. I have to start the presentation with this every single time. I am not an attorney. You don't want to get legal advice from me. It would be bad. So this presentation is merely serving as an introduction and overview to the topic. All right, here is the bread and butter. This is what we all came here for, right? So the National Do Not Call Registry. What is it? Well, it's housed within the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. It was created in 2003 to stop unwanted calls, specifically sales calls. So just know that if it's not a sales call, it may not be blocked. It's free to register for any phone number in the US, but know that it's meant for only personal phone numbers. So it's not going to stop business to business phone calls or faxes. And after you sign up, you still may receive phone calls for up to 31 days after that point, because it takes a little while for it to get your phone number to get into the system. So here are the rules, and for telemarketers in general, when it comes to the Do Not Call Registry. So telemarketers cannot call before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. That means that they can call any time between that point, which, granted, is a very large period of time that people can call you from. So just know, if they're calling before 8 a.m., that's a no-no. If they're calling after 9 p.m., that's another no-no. They cannot be deceptive or abusive, lie about any of the terms in their offer when they're calling you. And they cannot ask you to pay with a cash-to-cash money transfer by giving the PIN from a reloadable debit card or gift card. That's just a huge red flag in general. And they can't ask you to pay by asking for your bank account information to create a type of check that you'll never see or sign, called a remotely created payment order. Now, this is what they must do. These are things they have to do. They must connect to a sales representative within 2 seconds after you answer the phone call. Now, it's supposed to be a person. Sometimes it's not, and we'll talk about that in a minute. They must transmit their actual telephone number and, if possible, their name to your caller ID. They have to tell you right away what they're selling, or if they're from a charitable organization, they have to tell you where they're from and who they're representing, and that the call is a sales call or a charitable solicitation. They have to tell you that right away. They have to disclose all information about the goods or services that they're offering and the terms of the sale. And they have to get explicit permission to charge you or to use a particular account number if you are buying some sort of product. Now, what the registry doesn't do, and this is where people say the registry doesn't do anything. It doesn't stop every unwanted phone call. I think that's the #1 misconception about the Do Not Call Registry. You're still going to get bombarded, most likely, with robocalls and scam calls. So know that it's not going to stop every unwanted phone call. It does not stop calls from political organizations, from charities, debt collectors, informational calls, people taking surveys, and scammers. Scammers being bolded there and having some exclamation points for a reason. It will only block specific type of phone calls, specifically from telemarketers. Debt collectors can still call you, but they are limited to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So, and that has its own rules They're limited to calling you within reasonable hours. They can't contact you at your work if you've told them they can't, or your employer doesn't allow it. If you want to learn more about that act specifically, we have a frequently asked questions page about debt collection on our website. If you go to consumer.sc.gov and you just type in debt collection in the little search bar, it will come up if you're interested in learning more about that. And then informational calls specifically, that could be a cable company calling to say that there's an outage in your area, or a doctor's office calling and saying that you have an appointment coming up and they'd like to confirm with you. The key is that these places still can call you. They cannot legally try and sell you something, though. That's the key there. Robocalls. We all hate them. You answer the phone and you hear a recorded message. If a robocall tries to sell you something and you haven't given them written permission to call, it is illegal. If someone is trying to break the law by robocalling you without permission, this is a good chance, this is a sign that it is a scam. So there are some telemarketers that are legitimate robocalls, and they follow the rules that they're supposed to. But if you haven't given written permission for them to call, then they should not be calling you. And if they are breaking those rules, that means in your head, a little flasher should be going off, a red flag should be coming up of, this is probably a scam. Don't press any numbers, because we often get those phone calls or even those voicemails, which is a little funny. So you get a voicemail that asks you to press a number. That doesn't work on voicemails, but don't press any numbers. It may say press 1 or 2 to be connected to an actual person. Most likely it's going to lead to more robocalls down the line. They aren't necessarily trying to connect you to anyone. They're just seeing if it's an active phone line and to see if you'll press. If it is, then they've got what they need. They know this is an active phone line. They know somebody is there who's going to press the button. So then they're going to sell your phone number to other robocallers and you'll just get more of them. Here's why you should still sign up. I get this question a lot. So why should I sign up for the Do Not Call Registry if it's only going to block very specific type of telemarketing calls? And I think that's a valid question. It will stop those sales calls that you receive. Now, I've heard before it doesn't. I still get calls from cable companies or whatever it may be. Now, we do have to apply some grace here for companies because they're getting updated lists all the time. You may not get on their list ASAP the moment you sign up for the Do Not Call Registry. I talked about earlier that it could take up to 31 days for it to start to be active. It could take even longer for specific types of companies who are calling you. So if you still are getting those legitimate telemarketer calls, just tell them to take you off their list. They are required to, once you ask, take you off their list. Now, this does not apply to certain types of callers like debt collectors and whatnot. Those have their own rules in the Fair Debt Collection Act. So you'll need to look at that. But if it's just like a cable company who's calling to advertise some sort of product or an upgrade to your account, you can tell them, please take me off of your list. That might be more effective in the long run. But number one, this is why I tell people to sign up for the Do Not Call Registry. It will give you a good idea if someone is a scammer. If you don't recognize the number on caller ID, don't pick up. Just don't. I don't know. I'm not from South Carolina originally, if you couldn't tell from my lack of an accent. But I don't know if it's like a Southern charm thing, but everybody is answering every phone call out there, it seems. And I am here to tell you, it does not make you a bad person or a rude person. It does not go against Southern charm if that's what it's about, to just not answer the phone if you don't recognize the phone number, okay? I am giving you permission. Just don't answer the phone. If you pick up and the caller on the other end violates any of the rules, hang up. This is a very good sign that it's a scammer. And I want to talk about scams and identity theft here just for a second to show you how prevalent it is and how much money can actually be lost. So, scams reported in 2020. There were 613 reported just to us at South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. We know that there are so many more scams that are taking place in our state. These are just the ones that are reported to us, so keep that in mind. 78 of those reported actual money lost. Almost $1 million was lost amongst these reports. So that's an average of $12,000 per report. Potential loss is somebody got a phone call or an email or a text or whatever it may be. And they could have lost money if they would have fallen for the scam. Over $800,000 was there for potential loss. So know that this is happening every single day, multiple times a day, and it's happening across the nation and world where millions upon millions of dollars is being lost to these types of scams. If you have been a victim of any type of scam, don't be embarrassed. Everybody, no matter the age, is falling for scams these days. In fact, younger people, millennial type age, they're actually falling for more scams than older generations are. They're just losing less money, probably because they have less of it. So just keep that in mind. And what I want to say about phone calls real quick is it's so easy to spoof a phone number. And what spoofing means is to mask your phone number with any phone number you want. This is what a lot of robocallers or scammers are doing. They're not actually calling from South Carolina, even though the number on your caller ID showed the South Carolina area code. And the reason they do that is they know people are more likely to answer an unknown phone number if it's coming from an area code they recognize, so from within their state or in the area that they live in. Don't fall for that. It's not worth it. So please, if you don't recognize the number, general rule of thumb, just don't answer it. If it's somebody who needs to get in contact with you, they will leave an actual message. It's not going to be like I know I get plenty of these robocall messages that are scams, actual voicemails now, but they're like cut off halfway through. They tell me to press buttons. That's when I know, yeah, this isn't legitimate. Now, I do get calls from my doctor's office often that'll leave pre-recorded messages saying, your appointment is at this time. That's a legitimate phone call, right? They're not trying to sell me anything. They're not trying to get me to press buttons. So just keep that in mind as you're listening to voicemails too. If you do want to sign up for the Do Not Call Registry, you can go to donotcall.gov or you can call 1-888-382-1222. You can register more than one phone number. So if you want to register a different landline and a cell phone, you can do that. Just remember, I mentioned earlier, it's not going to work on business-to-business phone calls. You can only put 3 numbers on the list at a time. So it's not like unlimited. You can't put, 16 different phone numbers on there. I don't know who would have that many different phone numbers, but you never know. And for more frequently asked questions about it, you can go to donotcall.gov, and they've got a frequently asked question button there. Now, call blocking. We've only got 7 more minutes left. We'll go through this real quick. If you're still getting a ton of phone calls, there are options. If you have a cell phone, look at what built-in features your phone already has. I know my phone, which I have an iPhone, it'll give me the option to block any unknown number, not block. Screen. So what that means is if my phone doesn't recognize the number as something that's already in my phone book, it'll go straight to voicemail. Now, I stopped that because it sent pretty much every single South Carolina phone number to voicemail, including some important doctors, office phone calls, some calls from work, whatever it may be. So it didn't work out for me, but it might work out for you. See what services your carrier offers, whether you have AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, whoever. Give them a call and ask them if they have any call blocking services. Now, there may be a fee, so keep that in mind. Always ask before you sign up for something. or you can download a call blocking app. Do your research, look at the reviews, read the fine print and the terms and conditions, which I know I am guilty of myself, not reading the terms and conditions, and I just check the little box and go forward. Make sure you know what you're signing up for and how they're actually blocking the calls. There are plenty of them out there. You can search them on the App Store, whether you have an Android or an Apple phone. So just do your research before you just download any random app. Call blocking for landlines. You can install a call blocking device. Do your research though. Again, look at the reviews, read the fine print, see how they're blocking the calls. They need to disclose all of this information to you. And see what services your carrier offers. Same thing goes here. Call the person who manages your landline and say, what can you do for me? Are there any services? And again, ask if there's a fee associated. You can report unwanted phone calls even if you don't answer. So does a specific number keep calling you over and over again? I know I've had those phone calls before. Do you think a call you've received is being spoofed? So you don't think that number's actually calling from South Carolina if an 803 or 843 number comes in? Call us. You can report those numbers to us. I know there are individuals, I don't know if they're still doing it, but in the past who would call every single Monday and they'd have a list of phone numbers that they had kept from the week prior to report to us. You can do that. You can email them to us if you want. You can call us. Please report those numbers to us. We work with the FTC and gather these lists together. The FTC then looks at all of these numbers to see if there are any patterns, because that's how they then identify massive robocallers. Did an actual telemarketer contact you in a way that's contrary to the FTC's rules? Contact the FTC. Report that. It's illegal. Don't waste your time on these people. Just report, report, report.